Well, today is day 2 in court where attorneys in the Alishah Pointer murder case are arguing to dismiss the trial altogether. Pointer was kidnapped and found dead in an abandoned house back in 2021.
3 other people have already pleaded guilty related to her death and are awaiting sentencing. Our legal analyst, Stephanie Haney, joins us now to explain it all. This just seems to be the never-ending case, and this poor family cannot get any closure.
Sure, and this particular situation that we're in is very complicated. So I think what we should start with now is the reason that we're here today, and that's because when the trial for these defendants first got underway, the judge declared a mistrial, and this can happen for lots of reasons. We hear of it often when a jury can't agree on a verdict, for example. But here it was because of a serious error in the process. That made the trial invalid. Now, specifically what happened here is court staff sent communication to just prosecutors. That led to the court granting a mistrial back in March. And we don't know exactly what was in those communications. And quite frankly, we may not find out. But a communication from the court with only one side in a case is called an ex parte communication. And that's not allowed, Jay and Betsy, so that's why a mistrial was declared here.
Understandable. Do we know if that was done intentionally? Was it an accident, or we don't know at this point?
We don't know at this point, and again, we don't know what was in that communication, so we may not get any more clarity on that.
Based on this error, defendants in the case, they want it dismissed, claiming double jeopardy. I always thought double jeopardy was you couldn't be tried for charges once there was already a verdict rendered. That obviously isn't the case here.
Well, it is in a sense. That gets to the root of
So the mistrial counts as a verdict then?
It doesn't. So let's kind of break this down sort of piece by piece, because double jeopardy is intended to protect someone from being tried for the same crime twice, just as Jay said. Now, when double jeopardy comes into play is important. Typically, it goes into effect as soon as the jury in a criminal case is sworn in. Now, mistrials are a classic exception to the double jeopardy protection. That's because, as we were just talking about, there's no final determination when a mistrial is declared in a case. You don't get that guilty, not guilty verdict. Now, the point of double jeopardy is to make sure that a defendant is not found not guilty and then the state misbehaves and tries to come at the case in a different way, you know, harass a defendant by dragging them back into trial. That's what's key here, that preventing bad behavior from the state, Jay and Betsy.
Gosh, there's so many little facets that are a part of this. Thank goodness you're here to help us through all this. In this case, how is it possible then that they could claim double jeopardy? Yeah,
so here's where things get interesting because, as I said, really all about preventing that bad behavior from the court and the prosecution. The defense here is saying, I've been listening to the hearing this afternoon, that they were coerced into asking for a mistrial. Now, in the case of a mistrial, a defendant could claim double jeopardy protection if they can prove one of 2 things. If the prosecution caused a mistrial on purpose for some reason. Now, this communication in this case came from the court to the prosecution, so that doesn't seem to apply here. But if that communication from the court showed something prejudicial against the defense, that could possibly be grounds for double jeopardy protection to come into play here. Now, here's the thing, though. The state needs to protect the defendant, and it also has to protect the people's right to have this trial play out. So there are intermediate things that can be done to protect both of those interests, Jay and Betsy. Like, for example, if the prosecution was in any way involved with this, you could bring in new prosecutors, you could bring in a special outside prosecutor. If the judge did intentionally behave badly, we don't know if that's the case, but even if there's a question about it, you could bring in a new judge, and we know that the judge already recused himself in this case.
Wow. Any idea when this procedural matter will have some resolution?
It'll probably be resolved pretty quickly. We could get an answer today. As I was listening into the hearing, we were just hearing from the prosecution sort of responding to what the defense has been saying, so we could get a ruling on that pretty quickly. So they want to get this thing moving.
Absolutely, and so does the Pointer family. Goodness gracious.
If you're here, let us know.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks so
Appreciate
much,
it, Stephanie.